In 1969, the world held its breath as a grainy black and white broadcast showed something unbelievable. A man walking on the moon. Neil Armstrong's words echoed across the globe. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. But over 50 years later, questions still remain. Was everything we saw exactly as it seemed? Why was Neil Armstrong, the first man on the moon, so private afterward? Why did some things never quite add up? Today we're diving deep into the Apollo 11 moon landing mystery, and the enigma that is Neil Armstrong. The 1960s were a high-stakes era. The United States and the Soviet Union were locked in the Cold War, a battle of ideologies, nukes, and technology. In 1961, after the Soviets sent Yuri Gagarin into orbit, the US was behind. President John F. Kennedy made a bold promise. We choose to go to the moon before this decade is out. It was a deadline that seemed impossible, but behind the scenes, NASA was working furiously. Thousands of engineers, scientists, and astronauts pushed the boundaries of science and imagination, and in July 1969, just 8 years later, they did it. Or did they? Apollo 11 launched on July 16, 1969. Astronauts Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins were on board. After 76 hours, they entered lunar orbit. On July 20th, Armstrong and Aldrin descended in the Eagle lunar module. Armstrong was the first to step outside, and on live television, 600 million people watched him walk on the moon. It was a moment of triumph. But then, things started getting weird. The moon landing was broadcast live. But did you know that the original high-quality tapes are missing? NASA admitted in 2006 that they erased or recorded over the original telemetry data and broadcast footage because of a tape shortage. That's right, the most important moment in space history, and we no longer have the original version. Suspicious? Many people thought so. Now here's where it gets even stranger. Neil Armstrong himself. He became a global icon, but almost immediately after returning to Earth, he disappeared from the spotlight. Unlike Buzz Aldrin, Armstrong avoided interviews, speeches, or public life. He rarely talked about the mission, and when he did, it was brief and emotionless. In 1994, when a fan asked him to autograph something, he refused and later stopped signing anything to avoid profiteering. At the 25th anniversary of the moon landing, Armstrong said, "There are great ideas undiscovered. Breakthroughs available to those who can remove one of truth's protective layers." What did he mean by truth's protective layers? Was it just poetic, or was he hinting at something deeper? Of course, we have to talk about the infamous moon landing hoax theory. Some believe the moon landing was staged by NASA, filmed on Earth to beat the Soviets. Common claims include no stars in the photos, the American flag waving, shadows that seem inconsistent, and the question, why hasn't anyone gone back? Even filmmaker Stanley Kubrick was rumored to have helped fake the landing, using techniques from his film 2001, A Space Odyssey. But these theories, while intriguing, have been widely debunked by scientists. Still, the mystery lingers, partly because of Armstrong's silence. But maybe the mystery has a more human explanation. Armstrong was known to be extremely humble. He called himself a nerdy engineer and never sought fame. He once said, "I wasn't chosen to be first. I was just at the right place at the right time." He also endured personal tragedies. His young daughter Karen died of cancer before the mission. Some say that loss changed him forever. And maybe Armstrong withdrew not because of a secret, but because the weight of history was too heavy. There's overwhelming evidence that the moon landing was real. Over 800 pounds of moon rocks returned, independent tracking by other nations, retroreflectors still on the lunar surface, 6 successful Apollo missions landed on the moon from 1969 to 1972. Conspiracies are fascinating, but the science is solid. Still, the mystique of Armstrong remains. Neil Armstrong died in 2012 at age 82. He spent his final years as a professor, avoiding the spotlight, living a quiet life. He never wrote a memoir, never starred in a documentary. In a world addicted to fame, he remained an enigma. Maybe he wanted the focus to stay on the achievement, not the man. And maybe that's why people still wonder, what was he really thinking? Was there a mystery behind the moon landing? Maybe not the one people think. The real mystery might be Neil Armstrong himself, a man who touched another world, and then chose to walk away from ours. What do you think? Was Armstrong hiding something, or simply carrying the quiet burden of being first? Let us know in the comments. Hit like if you learned something new, subscribe for more deep dives into history and space, and as always, keep wondering, keep exploring. and keep reaching for the stars.